Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the SIP, or the Strategic Initiatives and Planning Committee meeting of the Arizona Board of Regents to order. Do we have a quorum?
We do.
Thank you very much. We're expected to go about an hour. We are live streamed, and you can watch it on YouTube or on the ABOR link live if you are so inclined. It is rather riveting, so I imagine there's going to be huge swaths of people watching us.
Audiences.
Right, audience. Before we turn to our discussion today, we do need to approve the minutes from our prior meeting. Are there any questions or comments related to the minutes? Hearing none, I move the committee approve the public session minutes from the November 7th, 2024 Strategic Initiatives and Planning Committee meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. We do have a late entrant. We'll give him a moment to settle.
Thank you.
Nothing like being called out, right? Yeah. I'm really actually excited to introduce our guests today that are going to help us have a conversation around infrastructure and space and the future of design, given all of the changes that we have been experiencing. So I'd love to call the Gensler team up. Many of you may know folks from the Gensler world, or the folks that are even joining us today. And I'm really interested in how we are looking at space and environment and how adaptable we need to be given how rapidly the world is changing. Our three public universities in Arizona really do an exceptional job already at this, and wanted to sort of see from a third party how they're viewing what's happening nationally and what's happening here in Arizona, and really sort of facilitate the conversation. As you all know, the state invests an incredible amount of resources in creating space for our universities. We have public-private partnerships, we have private engagements as well, and so we wanted to just have the conversation on how that world is evolving and what that's going to look like. We have the pleasure of the Gensler team having joined us. They are a global leader in design and planning, and they're going to share again what they're seeing nationally and regionally in terms of trends and what's forward-looking. I am going to turn the floor over to Oscar de las Salas and ask him to please introduce his team, and then I'll also ask you to jump into the presentation. We do want to make this as conversational as possible. It really is a dialogue, so I know there are several regions that I know will have questions and want to jump in, so please know that it's fluid, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I would say, Madam Chair, within the frame of work here today. Thank you to the Board of Regents for having us today. This presentation is a result of several conversations that we had over coffee or sitting next to each other with Jessica Pacheco about what exactly is, from the point of view of Gensler, with our knowledge as a global company, but also as a boutique company that we work here in the Valley, of what we know, what is basically the future of design of higher education. So as Jessica said, I hope this is going to be a conversation with us and our team about what is the frame for the future of education from our stand and our knowledge from the Gensler Research Institute. You are going to learn a little bit more about the Research Institute in a few minutes, but I want to introduce my team. So with us is Jay Silverberg. He's our design principal, as well as Lindsay Fiola, the design director and education lead, myself as a community strategist, but we have a late entry that she was able actually to be with us today, Catherine Decker, who leads the strategy, design and strategy, which is part of the services that we give to our clients. You're going to learn about that one as well. So getting into the information that we want to share with you, this is a critical moment to understand the design process when it comes to higher education, and to bring the student success through the process of learning from the environments that we create. This is based on research and technology. Of course, we're moving very fast and forward when it comes to technology. And the multidisciplinary approach when it comes to design an environment where kids or students are going to be present. It is a result, the information that we're going to share is a result of our Gensler Research Institute. So we are a global firm with 50 plus offices around the world and 6,000 plus employees within the world of design. Annually, our own firm give grants to our own teams to study a particular market sector or practice area for us to deepen our knowledge and share it with our communities and the communities that we work. So with that in mind, the result of such studies for a full year and year over year, based on our data that we collect, a quick interruption here, we're a design company, we're also a data company. We mine the data of our own projects. That gives us the ability to forecast what is coming on the market sectors that we work. So every year we have a series of publications, and one of them is the design forecast that you see here on this slide. And I hope and I think you all receive after this conversation a physical copy of this particular magazine that we distribute, where we talk about how we understand our knowledge and share it based upon what we have collected. Just to highlight, 80% of our annual revenue is invested in our own research, and our own employees do the process of research with a multidisciplinary teams in-house as well as any team member that is needed in order to deepen that conversation. We have more than 50 research projects that were funded, self-funded by Gensler in 2024. And those research go from climate action, as you see here, all the way to design strategy, and of course, higher education and education spaces. The process is very simple.
Yeah, so another example of the research that we do that is probably most apropos or relevant to the individuals in the room is the Education Engagement Index. This is not just a publication, it's a tool that we've developed, and it's a large panel survey. It's in the third year of funding. This is just an example of one of the summary pages. The QR code is active on this, and we can distribute access to the report. What we have found, we're in a moment where a lot is changing. Students have more choice than ever, but there's obviously the consideration of the ROI of education, and they're really looking for something that is specifically catered to what they want. And so what we've done, this large panel survey has multiple institutions participating, four-year, post-secondary, as well as community colleges. And what it does is just allow any of the design work that we do to be embedded in large data sets. Of course, there are other ways to engage. It's always really critical. So.
Yes, and again, this helps us to understand not just the data, but also and what are the needs, but understanding the expectations, because that does evolve over time and with different generations. And we are at a pivot point with what are students expecting from their higher education institutions, and what are those services being provided to them. And so this helps us to really understand the student voice, but also the educator's voice in partnership with that, and then provide that strategic direction for you all when you are providing your overall plans.
So the value of such process is basically an the integration of digital immersive experiences, and consider the environment of an institution as part of that process as in many angles, from the user, the student itself, to the institution, and even the public outside the realm of the institution. And then within that, we have a digital experience design and strategies that inform us of what are we doing, and also help us to course correct any of the processes. There's some line here that I was talking to Lindsay prior to arrive, and then this particular strategy goes beyond the platforms like Dreamscape that ASU uses.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've seen immersive environments. They're very targeted, they're very purposeful, but what you'll be seeing in some of the projects we'll share today is bringing this into that digital technology, digital experiences are being suffused through the entire experience of the built environment, not necessarily just as a destination, and that's sort of the next step.
Yeah, so, as we, begin to, ultimately look at how to design campuses and how to design these, really, vibrant places, for learning and to create community, we found that it also takes, requirement to understand a number of other aspects that can go into making an amazing, campus experience. And those would be things, thinking about technology, thinking about your brand. How does that get kind of integrated into projects? We're seeing so much integration of retail, hospitality, in addition to the core competencies of labs and classrooms. So we're really kind of seeing this, kind of melding together that everything becomes mixed use from an experience perspective. Next. So kind of with that, the future of, design and learning is really, kind of based into 4 buckets, we think, that we're going to talk a little bit more about here, shortly. Really this idea of experience-driven design that's really about, the experiences that we're creating on campuses, along with how financially we're, fueling the economies, connecting to the communities that we're in, and then really kind of understanding how we can better serve our, the students really from a holistic kind of perspective. So with that, this idea of experience, driven design, again, this idea that, we're finding and seeing all over the country that, projects that really ignite this experience really create a mixed use opportunity. They're always active. They're basically, almost 24/7 buildings in a sense that students are able to create their identity and their loyalty there, that happens on campus. And design becomes a part of that, opportunity to begin to do that. So a couple examples we thought would be kind of interesting to kind of share today very quickly was, basically at San Diego State University, a project that we did, the Snapdragon Stadium. And what's interesting about this is that it is so much more, than a stadium project, right? It becomes a community icon. It becomes a draw that it really allows to house the sports events that are happening there, but it also becomes a social destination on campus. The one image there on the right-hand side that you see, is an idea about extending experiences from in the stadium to the outside of the stadium. This is used for town hall events. You see there's a flat screen that's kind of there, that's kind of a way to kind of project identity. And so, using these projects as a way to kind of, turn them kind of, typically, kind of inside out for their use is something that we're seeing a lot of. Next please, in Dallas, we thought this would be an interesting project to share with everyone, the AT&T Discovery District. And this is a 4-block area in downtown Dallas that, basically brings together the business community. It also brings together, kind of the academic overlay of the downtown and really creates a place. And again, this was a project that had basically no connectivity between blocks or between experiences. So this was a way to to think about instilling culture and instilling art into the project. And you can see with some of these images here, the idea of technology to kind of create these really wonderful kind of vibrant experiences, has been a really strong success in Dallas on this project.
This is one of those examples where technology can suffuse with the everyday experience, kind of elevating the mundane into something extraordinarily memorable and creating that brand loyalty, not through advertisements, but through emotional experiences.
Yeah. And that the University of Texas recently completed the Moody Center. Again, a very, really the home for their men's and women's basketball program, but it also serves as the major entertainment venue for the entire community. It also, was designed to handle all of these different multiple events, but also the arena opens up to a major plaza area that also provides, opportunities for it to really become connected to the surrounding community. And then lastly, again, a very familiar project to all of you, and I think it's a very interesting, project from a historical standpoint where, I think this is, a great example of one of the first mixed-use urban projects that has an opportunity to bring together multiple programs, but also create a new front door for the campus from a standpoint of, being able to bring a landing point for prospective students that were there. And so also this idea of, again, of the mixed-use opportunity and a community-oriented building is what, we're seeing, and really through design and massing and articulation of the building, really creates a building that, that people gravitate to.
The next topic is probably extremely familiar to most of the individuals in this room. This really tight alignment between curriculum and fueling the economy. I think that's something, proudly that we in Arizona do extraordinarily well. Bringing it a step further, that obviously universities have been seeding ideas for, that's like their reason for existing, but how can they actually benefit from that, stay aligned with the IP that's coming out of the university. We all know that funding is going to be, a little different in the future, and so this becomes extremely important to the way the universities can really grow and function. And then likewise, this feedback loop is, what does the economy really need? In Arizona, we have a growing and changing economy. It's super, super exciting. How can every Arizonan kind of ride that wave? And it's really through training, whether it's matriculating in a 4-year program or a credentialing program. So one of the first examples here that several of the institutions in this room are a part of, the Innovation 27 project owned by the City of Phoenix, the brainchild of Community and Economic Development, and partnering with Arizona State University, NAU is involved, Maricopa Community Colleges District, WestMech, and Maricopa County are all partners in this incredible project. I hope you can't tell, but from the renderings, it used to be a Kmart. It is on the I-17 and Northern in an area that is extraordinarily connected to the great semiconductor development happening in the North Valley. It will have semiconductor training programs, a refrigeration program, because there are new requirements that WestMech needs to serve and train people to actually work in that industry, potentially health sciences education, and even veterinary tech. And the other cool thing about this, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in addressing the whole student, this project will seek to kind of smooth out any friction that a student might have to seeking a credential, getting a better job, whether that's childcare, veteran services, transportation. It's kind of a one-stop shop for students to say, hey, I want a better life and I want to ride this wave that's happening in Arizona, and they can do it here.
Without the stigma that might be associated with some of those issues.
Thank you,
Correct.
Jessica.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's correct.
that was such a great conversation we were having, that, destigmatizing seeking help. Like, everyone in this room wants every citizen in Arizona to succeed, every student to succeed, no matter what age. So thank you for mentioning that. A little bit different, the engine at MIT, also probably familiar to individuals in this room. The engine at MIT is actually a part of MIT Investment Management Company, so, aligned, of course, with the university, but this will have, it's been open for several years now, but state-of-the-art laboratory facilities, and it's really the ability to kind of meld the venture capital side with the IP and the university, and really extraordinary project. Studios at Mesa City Center, also hopefully familiar to some individuals in the room. This is a really cool, similar to Innovation 27, owned by the City of Mesa. This is their 1959 public library. It had been sitting as a data center for 10 years, which is just tragic when you look at how gorgeous the building is. And now, because of the partnership with ASU and the Mix Center adjacent to it, it has an innovation center under the auspices of the Entrepreneurship Center at ASU, but then also the Mesa Small Business Center. So trying to support legacy businesses in Mesa, Arizona is a huge goal of this project. Gateway Community College, again, I love that we're able to feature so many Arizona projects. Partnership with ASU and Maricopa Community Colleges District, fueled by Gateway Community College. This project is a makerspace, but so much more. It really supports the entire spectrum of arts and innovation in a unreinforced 1929 masonry building on Grand Avenue and Van Buren. So that was an interesting project to work on. Real stewards of the city. Maricopa Community Colleges District said, we're going to save this building, and through Herculean efforts, we did it. really turning it into a makerspace for all.
Right. And our next component is really talking about connected communities. And it's really looking at, opportunities to kind of reuse and transform, particularly existing building stock. I mean, it's something that from a sustainability perspective, we're seeing a lot of opportunities to be able to do that. Really the idea of being really resourceful and resilient, with energy and design, to really, really get the best and most highest use and value out of existing buildings. So a couple examples, also that are part of, sustainability and really, being very, very energy conscious. Is a project, we just finished last year in Mesa. This is a data center project. And, this is a company called Comarch. They're from Europe. It's their first American project. They had picked Arizona to kind of plant their flag, which is really amazing. I think it's, like all data centers, they use a lot of energy. We're really researching and looking at ways to kind of offset those energy costs for that. But again, it's this idea of examples of taking something that would typically be an inward-looking building and kind of turning it inside out and making it a building of the community, even as a data center, we think is really interesting. The next project is a project that we did at Western Kentucky University, a really interesting renovation reuse project in the center of their campus. Really meant to kind of, create this heart and center of the campus with this existing building. It basically was their existing gymnasium. It was a building that kind of sat, very not, I would say significantly used by the campus. And you can see kind of with the images there, I gave the team a great opportunity with a building that had, great bones and great infrastructure to kind of create a place to be for students. This combines social programs, food service, again, this idea of kind of creating a mixed use environment and a mixed use experience in the center and the heart of campus.
One really interesting aspect of this, number one, some of the U of A individuals may it's a little reminiscent of the beautiful renovation done at Bear Down Gym. And what it is creating spaces for students to collect both commuter and on campus. And that's becoming so critical. Many, many students don't live on campus. It's challenging to afford it. We'll talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah. And then lastly, an interesting project to share is, the South Mountain Community College, a science complex renovation adaptive reuse that we did. This was basically two, not very well used maintenance building facilities at the north end of their campus. This building this project, look at the opportunity to take these two buildings and then graft them together in a way to kind of create something that didn't exist before, a connected experience. We then added 12 laboratories into these buildings and created, very much kind of a science complex for the campus. And again, just another example of kind of existing buildings and kind of using that stock in a really creative way.
I think one great thing about this is on this project, the faculty and the president of the college was laser focused that the labs be state of the art and prepare students to transfer to the four-year ecosystem. So we were using, ASU, U of A, NAU lab standards for the design of that so the students could feel familiar when they transferred. I will say there was a lot of value engineering on this project to make sure we brought the best value, but we never value engineered the lab. So any space that kind of touched the success of the student was kind of sacrosanct. So I'm proud of that. The last topic we wanted to talk about is the whole student, and something that, when we've been talking to Jessica about developing this piece, it's really that the future student, even today's student, just has very different needs than any of us did when we were in school. The world has changed for them. Their priorities are a little bit different. They're really astute. They're thinking about things that at least I didn't think about when I went to university. Maybe my parents were thinking about it, but I certainly wasn't. It's about affordability. It's about housing and thinking critically about what do you really need to succeed. And of course, wraparound student services and concepts of wellness and the whole student. So this first image is not coming up. I'll just talk a little bit about it. So Antelope Valley College is in Lancaster, California. And what they wanted to do was to create a one-stop shop for counseling, registration, financial aid. And so the student, I don't know about you guys, I was having to run all over campus to kind of just register for my classes, get my financial aid, and get my bus card. So this is a one-stop shop for them. This project, Columbia College in Chicago, I started my career at our Chicago office, and we used to do something called summer projects for Columbia College, which were small kind of touch points. They have over 1 million square feet in downtown Chicago's Loop, but it's all in really cool 100-year-old former office buildings mostly. This was the time that they could kind of put their footprint in the Loop in Chicago and create a heart for their campus. They realized that their students are really unique. Most of them are commuters, and they needed a place to kind of have identity, be together, and really just take a Zoom class or get a little homework done between classes, and that's what this project did. The next project, the next 2 projects are student housing. Cal State University Long Beach Residential Hall, this dorm, even though it doesn't look like it, the floor plan will look a lot like the dorms that maybe some of us lived in. Single room triples, shared restrooms, and a very, very, very low cost per bed for these students. And that is what the students needed. This is campus-built housing. It was not a P3. Most of the housing we see now is developer-driven. And so their financial model is just a little different. Long Beach was like, we just need students to be able to afford to focus on their studies. One really fun fact, that little blue glass area in the back is their laundry facility. So they took the like gym tan laundry thing to the next level and said, how can we create a social hub for our students to combat loneliness and create kind of a collective experience that is part of the value of living in a dorm on campus. This is the Aspire in Tucson. This is a project we've done multiple projects with Aspire. This is developer-led student housing. This one doesn't look like the dorm that I lived in. It's suite style, and it's everything that many students, it's just about having that choice. Many students and their families want them to be able to have that experience, and Aspire is, it's right on the edge of campus. And so like a lot of developer-driven campus work, a lot of it's in Tempe, obviously in Tucson. It's just about providing that choice for students, and just more of it. Students need housing. Also faculty need housing. That's something we've heard a lot, to retain and recruit the best faculty to Arizona, which is becoming a highly desired place. Having that housing is critical. This is one of my favorite projects. It's reminiscent of Mirabella in that it is, what is their tagline? To bring seniors back to campus for their retirement years or something. It's really cool. It's at Purdue, and it's an active adult and assisted living facility at Purdue. The people who live there, the retirees who live there, actually get a student ID card. They can use all of the services of the Purdue campus. And then, of course, it has opportunities for experiential learning for students in health sciences to come back and learn from the residents there. So again, that feedback loop fueling the economy, because we need more individuals who are trained to work with individuals in assisted living facilities. So with that, we really wanted to open it up and have a back and forth for discussion, questions, comments. And I'm going to open it up to Catherine. Maybe we start with a couple of these thought provocations to engage you all.
Thank you. So yeah, we really wanted, again, to have a broader conversation and have a discussion. We've touched on some things that we see kind of currently, but we also want to offer these provocations and thought exercises on what do we see potentially for the future. We are already combating shifting expectations for students, focusing on health and wellness. We understand loneliness is now, the Surgeon General says, a greater threat to our students. So what can we see on how the role of the physical campus can play in really supporting our students? And what role can the physical campus play in that cannot be replicated online? Again, we are shifting to a digital hybrid world, but we still have a place for place. And what does that look like? We also want to understand, how does the campus evolve for that future student? What does that future student look like? And also wanting to potentially understand, what are some disruptors? We understand right now funding has changed. How does that potential disruptor modify how we're approaching how we deliver education? What are some other disruptors we could see in the future that we want to think about and prepare for?
And thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys sort of setting the stage on that and really, and giving us some examples both here in Arizona and nationally. What I love seeing is the need for range, and really want to applaud all 3 of our state schools who have already started doing a lot of this, if not all of it, right? And really sort of don't get a lot of credit for the innovation that they have sort of embraced, whether it had a fancy tagline or not. You know, they were sensing the need and really executing to that need. You know, to open up the first sort of thought provocation that you offered us, I'd love to hear from our student regents, Regent Zaragoza and Regent Fisher. And so, since you are still on campus, you know, how have what do you see as changing needs? What is design that's been really flexible and favorable to helping you succeed or your cohort succeed? And we just love your thoughts on that.
I have thoughts if you want me to go first. I really like how like the loneliness component has been addressed. Like that's definitely something that I see is students just like needing that connection, but being too afraid to step out of their comfort zone to initiate that. So having these like joint spaces where there's a variety of things going on and variety of people like interacting, I think that provides a really valuable opportunity for that. So when you were talking about like the shifting landscape, like in terms of like hybrid learning as well, I lived in the NAU Honors College my first year, which is a newer building. Now I'm in Allen Hall, love it, but it's definitely traditional style. And what I really liked about the Honors College is that they provided opportunities for those quiet study spaces and areas where it's just like a single little cubicle where students could take Zoom calls, they could take like medical appointments if they needed to, like if their roommate was in the room, and those were kind of like their private rooms, but also surrounded by these more like communal spaces, so being able to still
Like being
interact.
private but in public,
Yes, yeah,
which
yeah,
is really important for students.
absolutely.
One of the
Regent
things that
Zaragoza.
really caught my attention around that, I remember the laundry facilities at my dorm down at the U of A. They were in the basement and super dingy and frankly like a little like sketch, you know?
Yeah.
And I was always down there by myself. But I was like, I love the idea of bringing those like everyday sort of, I would say tasks that you have to do, chores that you have to do into the general sort of area that you don't have to necessarily feel alone while you're doing all of that.
Well, I can't comment on my laundry units. They were on the 4th floor of the building, so lots of sunlight. Yeah, I'm sorry that you couldn't experience that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was in the basement. Thank you though. Yeah. I'm surprised I remember, but yeah.
What I can say is that it seems that Gensler has focused on bringing a modular and interconnected approach to designing living and educational facilities on campuses, and that is certainly commendable. But what I am curious about, and just to give you sort of background, my calling card is the Yuma region. That is what people know me for. How does Gensler foresee their role in bringing this sort of modular and interconnected approach to campuses that are not within the Tempe and Tucson metro areas?
Yeah, do you want to?
That's a great question.
I can, yeah. So first and foremost, our, our work, we obviously focused on our Arizona work, but our work is all over the country in all kinds of communities. And I think that when we look at communities like Yuma, that, the biggest question is how to retain students who are going, who are being educated in those communities and kind of keep them in the communities. So it's like this idea of that idea of the feedback loop with the economy and the educational institution, or how to even bring people back. Our more rural communities have different considerations than our more urban communities. But I think that, obviously making sure that students have opportunities for both hybrid and in-person classes so that they can benefit from the larger ecosystem that is available of educational opportunities is key. But then just making sure that that those students want to stay in those communities with affordable housing. How do you seed businesses in those communities? It's a little bit bigger of a community, but our work at the University of Kansas School of Business actually had a business incubator for businesses in Lawrence, Kansas. So that's a very town and gown kind of situation. For a long time, Lawrence was KU, but they said, no, we don't want everyone to go. We don't want the brain drain to Chicago or Kansas City, what have you. And so they actually had a small business center to seed research, and the students were helping small businesses kind of launch in Lawrence, so.
So I do have to, if I may take the freedom to speak from being a Hispanic, which is the majority of the constituency in that area of the state. Before we start any design process or even trace the first line, the first thing is to get to know the community where you're going to be working. And more so coming from an area that is in distress, that has a tradition, a historical tradition that is not the happiest one to re-engage or re-talk about. So then there are social aspects of it that are part of the design strategy. There are social aspects to be considered before even tracing the first line to build a building. We need to build from community. We need to build from the emotions of the community, from the financials of the community, to the expectations of a community. And within that realm, within that idea, is the big bridge and transfer from generation to generation, from a generation that was not having that didn't have the access to education, to a generation that is going to have full access. More so, it's going to be, thanks to technology, it's going to be hybrid. So their parents may not understand, their tias and tios and primos, perhaps they won't understand. But that process of student excellence comes from understanding the locale and decide. And we have several strategies that Catherine can explain or expand at some point one-on-one or touch upon if you want to. Thank you, by the way, Regent Zaragoza.
What would you imagine as the ideal, ability to have higher education available in the UMA community?
Well, that's a great question. What I can say is this. Each of the board's universities prides itself on being an institution that meets students and people where they're at, rather than forcing them to pack up and go home. That is an option, but it's not the only one. So it makes me happy to see that Gensler also wants to meet people where they're at, and not necessarily try and have them conform to your ways of thinking, but rather you conform to theirs. I guess the best solution that the Yuma community or any rural community can benefit from is for you to continue that modality of meeting people where they're at, learning their culture, learning their ways of thinking, and adapting your projects in order to meet those specifications. In Yuma's case, I could go on for an hour, but I know that we only have an hour, so I won't dwell on that for too long, but just wanted to commend what you have done.
We can have the hour in our office, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Zaragoza.
And Greg, as co-chair of college athletics and sort of reimagining and re-envisioning how much that space is changing and what the new sort of stadium, arena, rink may or may not look like, I would love to get your thoughts on sort of what you're seeing and then what Gensler presented.
A couple of the examples that you used that kind of I've seen. So been in Texas, and so what I would tell you is the following. I think we always look for through the eyes of others, and when I think about coming to a campus, I think through a couple. One, you stated it. This isn't like my college experience. And when I walked through with my daughters here at ASU, I just shook my head and go, this was not even close. So that's one. But what I always think of is how do you pull the community pull into the university? And one of the biggest things that you use to bring the community to the university is athletics. Mm-hmm. So when you think about your athletics and your facilities and the way they set up to bring people in and have an enjoyable game day experience, or even better, it's not game day, but I want to come down and be near or around the athletic facilities. That is something that I am always looking at for our three universities. And there's examples in all three universities where we have done something extraordinary to bring the public, the non-students, into the university to say, okay, wow, this is pretty spectacular. So my bar is very high on how we bring the public, the alumni, the outside, not the student's family, to the university to understand all the great things the university is doing through the optical lens of athletics. So when anything is being done around athletics, I would tell you I'm going to have a real critical eye on how that's going to look, how it's going to function on game day and beyond. And that's what I would challenge this group to do, and I've seen some of your work, but that's what it's got to be. It has to be something more than just a nice game day experience. And again, I can look at 3 universities and some facilities that I've seen that kind of are, they're there on a national level in a good spot. I'd like to see that continue as you look at all athletic programs.
Is that the experience of having facilities that are just basically dedicated to sport, to be the public plaza, to be open 24/7, to have the ability to have a restaurant to go when it's not game day, to have perhaps a daycare on the first floor in space that is a negative space of that particular space?
Well, I would look at you and say from a conversation yesterday, you don't have to look far here at ASU at the Novus. That is bringing together the exact idea of what you want is 365 days of the year, maybe Christmas, not that, but 365 days of the year, you can come down and you can enjoy something fun and fabulous on a university campus, and it doesn't have to be game day. But on game days, wow, does that add to the whole experience? You want to get here 2-3 hours ahead of time because you want to be around that venue. Second thing I would say, and you bring it up, I've talked to a lot of the coaches at both U of A recently and ASU recently, and it's just the way their offices are structured. There's a lot of young coaches with young kids. Yep. And I hear from them all the time, it would be great if, even on game day or even not on game day, that we had childcare in the athletic offices. Yep. So I could have that option to bring my children in and, by the way, play with the other lovely coaches' children. So keep pushing the envelope of what is, but what is possible, not only for the outside public looking in to participate, but also beyond the students, the coaches, the staff, the faculty. How do you make things better to hold them on this campus and make their daily life as an employee even that much better?
That loop we design the human experience, and we connect with our communities.
It's like 360 degrees. I think that's so inspiring what you mentioned, and that's similar to what we've seen on Innovation 27. A lot of our workplace work, actually Catherine's designed several childcare facilities for workplace. It's like, how do you make life possible for people? And just considering whether it's childcare, whether it's the need for social connection when you're doing your daily lives, like, it's really about looking at humans in 360 degrees, not necessarily, and you'll, like, in looking at the work today, it's not just technically, we do have sectors or practice areas at Gensler, but they're so fluid because it's not just one thing, especially athletics, performing arts, cultural, it's not just higher ed.
And again, multi-use, and I think of practice facilities that can then be on game day tailgate facilities, where the public can buy in. These lead to revenue creation opportunities. So it's not just looking at it from the eye and lens of athletics, but it's how does that turn into something that the whole community can get involved with and maybe even use, and the university can charge for that fun on game days. Yeah. So that's where my head is, and again, I think we've got one of our universities down that path, and we're still trying to figure out and fine-tune how that can go completely. I see great opportunities at the U of A to really bring that to campus, and certainly NAU, we've talked about all kinds of options to bring something that the community could fall in love with and have a multi-use arena that could, bring something to the whole city, the whole county, but obviously for the university to pull around NAU, pull them in. So there's plenty of opportunities still left, and again, I always think about, call it the employees of the university, how do we make their jobs and lives, especially for coaches that tend to, watch film, break out things until the wee hours of the morning. How do you make their life easier relative to their family life? So,
correct.
Chair Mata.
Thank you, Chair. So you were talking about, I don't know if you call it assistant living, senior community, that you're adding that to the university. I know that ASU have a senior building
Mirabella.
that
Yeah,
people rent.
Mirabella.
Yeah. So what, how is that, I don't want to call it trend, you know, it's like we have to feel like energetic because we will be around students, or how is that coming to, because I will be
Us?
going that.
Us. I know us. Too soon for that.
Take your supplements.
Yeah, because this is, you know, I see that more and more, but I want to see how the modern, you know, community look like, or if this is something that is expanding through all the university. What is the outcome of that? And also, you see that in every single, you know, university happening?
Yeah, I would say that we see it as a strong trend. You know, I would say like in the past, 3 to 5 years. I mean, certainly the project on the ASU campus was absolutely a trailblazer as it related to kind of, bringing, that opportunity, to, a multi-generational, experience. And I think one thing that we've been seeing too is that a couple of campuses that we know that have done that, when the projects seem to be more on the perimeter edge of a campus, like Mirabella is, there's such a great urban connected experience that I think has been a big piece to the amazing success of that project. When they're sort of embedded more into the campus, it seems to be more difficult, for a standpoint of, we're sort of seeing, the desire to be more connected maybe, from a, an academic perspective and opportunity compared to the, the more kind of urban, kind of more activated experience. So that's kind of a trend, that we're beginning to see with that. We also, I think, Greg, to your point, we're starting to see a mix of other programs now in, sort of those kind of residential, communities, that's allowing, a kind of engagement with students coming to that facility, which is really, really interesting. And again, Mirabella is the trailblazer, but we definitely are seeing, those opportunities more in the P3 right now, sort of private, public, opportunity with that.
Yeah, and
and, please, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I
Dr.
think
Krebs.
it's just because people are, well, I think hopefully our society is developing a different relationship with aging and saying, look, like, maybe your needs change, but vibrancy, connection is still something that's desired. So we're seeing, in general, a lot of senior living projects, and they're very different. They're more hotel, more hospitality driven than ever before. So.
Dr. Crow?
Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, and some of this is to remind regions and inform the newer regions. So all of our projects like Mirabella or what we do in Novus, I mean, they're not real estate projects, they're university development projects. So we think the university is a better institution because we have these people older than 55 who have decided to then live on campus or at the edge of campus and then to integrate themselves into the institution. That project is also a 49% equity position belongs to us through enterprise partners. And so it's also a financial maneuver for us, using our land to generate capital investment, using our land to generate revenue, using our land to generate net assets. While at the same time, it's also a development opportunity for those people when they pass on to the next molecular configuration. They have an opportunity to leave the molecules that they can't take with them to us. And so, the project has a range of impacts, including, and we have a full-time person that's assigned to Mirabella. We have people that are teaching and working and students that are there and all kinds of other activities. And so it's a powerful project, but across a number of dimensions, including financial dimensions.
Yeah.
Including, then it also is a faculty recruitment asset, because there are a number of faculty who want their parents to be near them as they age, and
Yeah.
there they are.
Please.
Chair, one last comment, because I grew up in a house that was athletics and arts, and I would be remiss not to say that just the other night here at ASU and Opera, where the lead was a scholarship winner from my mom's scholarship. And again, to go over and enjoy, restaurants before a production on campus supporting My only argument would be I would love to see a few more swing around over towards Gamage and the amphitheater. So again, not that it isn't here, not that it's all athletics, but the arts, I want to make sure that focus is there because again, as much and maybe even more on campus, any given campus, are things around the arts versus athletics as the sole driver to bring the community to the universities.
And thank you for bringing that, Regent Brewster. There is when I mentioned the plaza or the piazza or the place that we all gather, it just ranges from every single use. And the arts is always present. Yes, sports is part of what we humans use to entertain.
It's 80,000 people, I get it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then from once again, experiences that are international, we all have had that opportunity to visit other countries where the piazza or the plaza is where everybody gathers. And I'm actually looking at some Venezuelan friend, Professor Paula Sanguinetti and I, who have had conversations about how the expansion of the university includes the ability for everybody to gather at one place at one point. So perhaps a stadium becomes that plaza. The areas around the stadium becomes that plaza where everybody gathers. And then there are expressions of arts to support that ability for gathering in one space. Either their performance or their applied arts is part of the day-to-day, and once again, the human experience.
Larry?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I mean, I appreciate what you all presented today, the conceptual basis, and I think we see the reality of that in so many ways here at ASU. I mean, as President Crow stated more than 20 years ago, when people, I don't think, believed that you could really build urban spaces here at ASU, and you articulated that in the very early days as we look to the integration of community with the institution. You see the reality of that, and I think expressed through what you've described. I deliberately, in going to Larry Copper Theater with some out-of-town academics a few weeks ago, I deliberately took them to Novus Place, and I think they were both amazed. They wished that it had been closer, but I didn't want to take them to the Omni, even though that would have been closer. But what I wanted them to see was how Novus Place was integrated with the institution, the restaurants that were there, and what they were most amazed at too, I think not only the location, but the accessibility of parking nearby in that new parking structure that's just a little southwest of Novus Place. So I think we're seeing the reality of that, and I do give President Crow a lot of credit for having articulated something that I don't think many people here at ASU understood back in 2002 and 2001. When he was recruited and arrived here. But it's good to see that in a conceptual framework like you've described. As our chair has said, and others as well, I'd like to see that at the other two institutions because I think that will address some of the loneliness that our two student regions talked about and really draw the communities who really admire those two institutions and their separate locales enormously, and draw that community into the institution in the way that I think we've seen ASU do with things like Novus Place and Omni and that whole reconstruction of the west side of the campus.
Thank you so much, Regent Penley. Our time is wrapping up this afternoon, but I do want to open it up to any other regents that may want to comment. I do want to thank the university design experts and innovators that have participated either virtually or in person. Thank you so much for what you're doing and for the sort of tangible manifestation of these kind of conversations and what we see on all three campuses and hopefully are going to see more of. And then thank you so much for the Gensler team in joining us. We really appreciate the framework and the conversation and quite frankly the thought provocation, if you will, as we're looking at making big space decisions, what elements should we be considered and who needs to be around the table to consider them? Because it's not me, I'm still in the basement washing my clothes, right? So again, we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And by the way, the doors of our offices are open to all of you to continue this conversation and understand how can we propel higher education in our own state.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your support of higher education, and we'll call on you to be ambassadors for us.
Fantastic, thank you.
We need lots of ambassadors.
Sign.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so, again, thank you for the participation in the discussion. Are there any other issues, Chair, that you'd like us to discuss today before we adjourn?
No, thank you, because I have the answer for my aging
Okay,
community.
right. I know. Should we sign up now? Is there a waiting list? How does that work? No. And this does conclude today's Strategic Initiatives and Planning Committee meeting. Thank you very much for participating, and we look forward to our next committee meeting with Regent Goodyear.